welcome to episode 3 of the Gaming Lounge podcast. Once again, I'm your host Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How you doing, Dory?
Hello, doing great.
All right, it was a pretty loaded show because it was a lot of news for both PlayStation and Xbox,
Yes.
and somewhat for Nintendo, but we're not going to talk about that this week. But the big thing, we had the Xbox event, the podcast, and it was pretty much a nothing burger, and that's been the key word used this week. I've pretty much seen everybody on Twitter use the same word, nothing burger. Like I feel like
Yep.
it should be trademarked at this point. And but there was a handful of things we're gonna talk about, like the Silent Hill 2 devs are not very happy about what that was shown on State of Play. There's a couple
Join the club.
Yeah, there's a couple Sony news about their PC strategy and an Astro Bot game possibly coming out, and the fact that there's going to be no new games or no existing franchises are going to come out
Right.
prior to
I think they mean no huge first party games or something like
Yeah, they mean
Spider-Man 3 or something.
Yeah, they mean like Spider-Man, God of War, Last of Us,
Right.
kind of thing. And then
Whatever.
Obviously, like I said, we're going to talk about the Xbox podcast event later on. So first, we're going to start with what we always do, is spotlighting a couple games. In this case, Dory's going to spotlight Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood.
I struggle with that name every single fucking time. I love the game, but I hate the title. Yeah, this is made by the same people who did the Red Strings Club, which I think I talked about a couple of years ago when I first played it. This is very similar in that it's an incredible narrative experience with really fun, lovely characters. But it's a totally different setting, whereas the Red Strings Club is this dystopian cyberpunk future. This is more of a contemporary, modern society where witches happen to exist, but they exist in secret. And you are a specific witch in a coven that has been banned from your sent into exile from your coven for foretelling the eventual doom of your coven. I'm saying the word coven a lot. But yeah, basically that's the whole premise. I, as a disclaimer, not really into witchy things, right? I'm not into tarot, and I'm not into astrology, and I'm not into any of that stuff. So this game had a little bit of a hill for me to climb in terms of that, because I have preconceived biases against that stuff, just because I think it's kind of corny, and some people base their whole personality around it. If you do it for fun, great. I don't care about people like that, but people who kick out their roommates or whatever because they're a Capricorn and the other person's like a Sagittarius or something, that's fucking weird. Anyway, sorry, that's my little rant. But this game's not really about that. Almost immediately, you don't use tarot cards, traditional tarot cards. You kind of make up your own deck. There's lots of interesting meanings that you can create. There is a lot of really beautiful animation that's pixelized. So that's lovely to look at. I had a lot of fun making my own cards. And eventually, I just bought in because it's just in this world, witches exist, magic is real, and cards can actually, possibly tell the future. And it's you set up those premises well. It's I'll buy in. I don't care that I'm not personally attracted to those kind of ideas in the real world, but this is a made up believe world or whatever, so it's fine. Yeah, it's a really, really fun game. For me, it's very narrative heavy, of course. The main gameplay, if you want to call it that, is making, which it is gameplay, but the main mechanic is making up your own cards, and you get various seals and backgrounds and various kind of arcana energy to use to make cards, and later on you can dispel cards to get energy, so you can make new cards if you're unhappy with your deck as it is. To be clear, it's not a deck building game. You're not fighting people or anything like that. There's not a single round of combat or anything like that in the game. It's a lot of witch politics, which I didn't expect. It's a lot of trying to figure out what's going to happen to the coven now that you're trying to get out of exile. Your character Fortuna is basically does some forbidden magic at the beginning of the game to get out of exile, and I won't go too much into what that looks like or what it is. But it's right near the start, and she makes this basically a deal with the devil kind of thing. And yeah, you just play the game to see how that deal goes. If she gets out of exile, what happens to the coven? There's some good twists and turns. There's a lot of cool backstory too about her and her sister. Her family and her sister, and like everything going on with that. Her time as a human before she became a witch. And yeah, it's really fun. The dialogue's written very well. The music is awesome. I can't remember her name, but she's an awesome like trans musician, and she did work for Red Strings Club too. She's part of Deconstructum, I think is what they're called, and they're under the umbrella of the Hotline Miami people. The developers who are like everywhere these days. I can't remember what they're called though. But yeah, let me look up what their name is because I can't remember it's gonna bother me. It was developed by Devolver Digital, right? Devolver Digital is the developer for this game, who are like everywhere. But the team behind it is called Deconstructum. Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's not a super long game. I think it took me about 6-7 hours to beat. Definitely under 10. You can go back for multiple playthroughs. The game, the ending that I got, I was pretty happy with. I mean, a couple of regrets, but mostly happy with. But it's very story based, very choice based. The main thing is that they do allow you to start back from the beginning, and obviously you can make different choices, make different cards, choose different alliances. I'd say my only real issue with this game, I think it's a really great game overall. It didn't like blow me away or anything. I didn't cry or sob or have like a let's go moment or anything like that. But I really enjoyed my time overall. I'd say my only main criticism of the game is just that the back end of the game, you were deep into witch politics, and it does get a little tiresome to. And I guess there's a way to make Fortuna walk faster, but I did not know this because the game doesn't tell you for some reason. But basically, you have to like walk between the top floor and the bottom floor to get cycles to go forward in the later half of the game. And I don't remember exactly how, but you can make Fortuna walk faster. Anyway, it's just kind of a slog. Towards the end, too, I was like, there's a system in place basically to see who will keep control the coven, and I was winning like handedly. Like there was no point of like continuing, but because it had a set cycle, it had to keep going. So that was a little annoying. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was definitely annoying, and I would have preferred if there was easier ways to get the cycles to go forward, because ultimately I crushed the competition. And yeah, I had a pretty satisfying ending. I didn't like how the game was trying to make me feel like it wasn't a satisfying ending. Like it was a little weird. Like I basically gave up something of Fortuna's instead of hurting my friends or hurting her family or whatever, in exchange for making the coven a better place and restoring peace and blah blah blah. And the game was like trying to make me think that Fortuna like resented it and wasn't in favor of it. And I was like, this seems like a pretty good choice to me. But the game obviously wanted me to like rebel and go back on my deal. And I was like, no, I think this is fun. But whatever. I'm not an immortal witch. I'm a mortal human. So my perceptions about eternal life are skewed. But yeah, Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, very fun game. Very much recommend. If you like the Red Strings Club, I mean, you've probably already played this, honestly. But if you haven't, definitely play it. It's a really great game. It came out last year, so it's pretty new. Like I said, the animation and music are beautiful. Characters are very well written. A little bit of a sluggish pace at the end. But overall, yeah, really great time. So highly recommended.
All right, so the game I'm going to highlight this week is Helldivers 2, which is perhaps the biggest multiplayer game out right now.
It's huge.
Just past 300,000 concurrent players on Steam, which makes it past Starfield and Halo Infinite. So it's obviously a huge hit for Sony. They published it. It is a first part. It's a second party game. Sony published it. The Arrowhead developed the game. Sony does not own Arrowhead as of this recording. So what is Helldivers 2? Well, it is a third-person shooter where you can shoot in first person if you want, but it's a button you have to press. It's not a first-person shooter. It is a multiplayer game where you fight basically a bunch of enemies and complete objectives. The enemies can include giant bugs, much like Starship Troopers, and robots that have like a variety of weapons. Some have like chainsaws for hands, or tanks and flamethrowers, or and this game gets very difficult, especially against the robots, because you die very easy in this game. This game is constantly requires you to strategize how you're going to tackle it, because you only have so many limited resources. So if you die a lot, you're going to fail the mission. The mission structure is there's a variety of it. There's a nice variety that makes it feel a bit different. I mean, at the end of the day, it's mainly the same thing of killing things, completing an objective like unlocking a terminal, defending the terminal, or destroying like a nest, or destroying a tower that's shooting propaganda or something like that. So it does get repetitive a bit, but it's so much fun that you don't even care that it's repetitive a bit. But it's still enough variety, I think, where it keeps it fresh every mission. Because the missions in this game are they're not long, but they're not short either. They're like 10 minutes each, so it's not something you just shoot. I mean, you just bullshit around and get it done in like a minute. Like you have to literally complete an objective, and the objective can be tough. It is a game I would recommend with players, with friends. This game can be played solo, but it's not as fun without playing with friends, because it's just you need to, like I said, you need to strategize how you're going to tackle the mission. So it's easier when you have people that know what they're doing, actual people you can actually communicate with. You can play solo, but like I said, I wouldn't recommend this game by yourself. But if you want to, and it's still a lot of fun for you to play if you do want to play solo. But I would. This is a game where you play with your friends. I think the progression in this game is really good. You don't need to buy anything to have fun and progress. Like I feel like this game is a great example of modern, modern microtransaction, modern like online, where it's like it doesn't like it's there, but it doesn't force you to do. It doesn't force you behind some paywall. It doesn't limit you in any way. It's totally optional. I think that this game does a really good job. I hope other games replicate it. I feel like I'm leveling just enough every time I play. Like every couple missions, I'm leveling, and I feel like there's always a steady pace. I don't feel like I'm stuck. Like I don't feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I feel like there's so much customization you can do in this game, between like the weapons, the armor, like the colors of your ship. You can customize so much in this game. The only thing only complaint I have about that is that there's so many options that you don't know what to pick sometimes, and it feels like I don't know what this stuff. I don't really know how good this is gonna be. Is this a waste of time? Is this a waste of resources? Because there's some things that are just way better than others. It's like why even pick the other thing? But so sometimes this game has this weird like um, problem where it's like there's too many options, and you feel like you don't know what's the best thing to pick. So
Yeah, you get like choice paralysis.
yeah, but overall, this game is a blast. It's absolutely amazing to play. It's really, really fun. It's challenging just enough. There's difficulty options. It goes way up if you want to, but you have to unlock it. But there is like novice mode, easy mode, normal mode. So you have the option of how you want to tackle it. Obviously, you get more rewards the higher difficulty you play on, but this is not a game I'd play on the highest difficulty personally. Just because, like I said, this game can be pretty frustrating if you die a lot, because you will die a lot. Because you can get ran over by you can get one shotted by a giant bug. The robot missions can be overwhelming, where it's like just too many enemies at you at the same time. Um, and there's friendly fire in this game, so people you're playing with can kill you. Uh, there was one time where I was playing with somebody and they accidentally dropped a care package on me, and it killed me. That's probably it was my fault, because I didn't pay attention where they threw it. But yeah. You can like just kill your teammates right off the bat, and then but the respawn's not that bad. It only takes like 10 seconds or whatever.
Not bad.
And I feel like I think when you reset, the voice changes, so it's like a different person takes place. It's supposed to be like a big parody of of the military, because it's like everybody's kind of just like a number. You die. We just put another person in. This
Yep.
game is full of like making fun of like American propaganda and military propaganda, where it's like Starship Troopers. You know, it's like we're
Yeah.
fighting for freedom and democracy. You know, everything we're
Yes.
doing is for that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we're gonna freedom the shit out of things. You know.
That's right. We're gonna free the shit out of you by bombing you into submission.
Yeah. Oh, although it makes sense because you're fighting like these big bug things and they're invading other planets. Like Super Earth, they make it clear that Super Earth and Mars are liberated. They make it very clear, 100% liberated, and then everything else is like getting invaded by robots and bugs.
Yeah.
But it does imply that like we're not exactly the heroes either, and some of the military is a little shady and a little
Right.
violent. Like they enjoy this kind of thing.
Right. Of course.
But it's not. It's not. It is political. And it has like it has I won't say it hits you over the head with it. It's just gun. It's not trying to make say a message or anything. I think it's just trying to be goofy.
Yeah.
Let's say it's kind of like Wolfenstein, where like it walks that fine line where it's like it's there, but it's not hitting you in the head over it. It's not trying to like preach to you about something. It's just
Right.
It's just there.
Yeah, it's parody. It's exactly what Starship Troopers was going for.
Exactly.
As somebody who's seen that. Yeah.
Yep. So where this game really shines is the gameplay, and I think I like the story. There's really not much story. I mean, you just you're liberating. Keyword liberating planets from bugs and robots, and that's the whole game.
Yep.
And you have your own ship to command.
Legally distinct bugs, I wanted to point out. Legally distinct, definitely not Starship Troopers bugs. I got that joke from the IGN review, by the way. But yes. Legally distinct bugs.
And you do get to control your own ship. And that's kind of cool. You kind of like Mass Effect. You're like the captain of your own ship. You can customize it and things like that. In terms of performance, the patches have really done a good job fixing a lot of things. But the matchmaking can be a little bit of a problem, and it can be a bit laggy here and there. But that's expected in these kind of games. So nothing has been game breaking for me. But I know other people have had issues, so miles vary. I know the servers have been overloaded because they did not expect this game to be as popular as it is, and they've had issues with their servers, and they had to like shut it down, and people couldn't play. But
right, yeah, I've heard stuff about the servers.
But what I've been playing, I've had zero issues, so miles will vary. But overall, I think that Helldivers 2 is a must-play game if you're into these kind of games. It's going to be one of the best multiplayer games of the year. It has like an 82 or something on Metacritic, I believe. So
yeah, IGN gave it a 9.
IGN gave it a 9, so it's doing really well. It has a lot of players. I'm curious how long of legs it has. I'm curious if like this game's gonna last. I don't know if because you know how things are when games come out, they're popular for 3 weeks and then they falls off. I wonder how long this game is gonna be.
I think it'll make it to mid-March. I mean, they need some strong support, just like any other game, but you need some strong support behind this one to give it more legs. Definitely server support too, because like you said, it's been breaking records left and right.
Mm-hmm. And I think I could see this game because Sony's publishing it, so
right.
I can see them supporting this game. I feel like this is the game this is the kind of game they needed like in their portfolio, because Sony's known for single player games, and they have lacked multiplayer desperately. So this game fills a nice little like window niche for them. I can see them supporting it. The good thing about this game is I feel like you could support it for a long time because you can do more enemy varieties, new planets, and all a bunch of stuff. You could do maybe do vehicle combat and stuff in the future. I don't know. So I can see this game lasting a long time, but we'll see. So Dory, did you have any questions before we move on?
Yeah, so I was wondering how the AI is. Is the AI good at supporting you when you're solo, or is it trash, or somewhere in between?
It's good enough. It's good enough.
It's good enough. Okay.
Yeah, like they fight pretty well. They throw a lot of care packages. I noticed they apologize a lot. Like if they throw it near you or something, like throw the package near you or something, they apologize.
So they're just like me for real.
Yeah.
Apologies everywhere. This game sounds really cool. I'm not really much into multiplayer games these days, and I just don't think I'd have a great time with this. I'd just prefer to focus on my backlog until Final Fantasy comes out. My goodness, that's coming out soon, actually. So I'm gonna just wait for that. But yeah, I'm really happy to hear about how successful this is. We were talking about before in previous podcasts, previous episodes about how, like you said, PlayStation really needed this multiplayer success because they just have not had it lately. And ironically, I mean, this game's not really for me, but it looks cool, and I'm glad that it's succeeding. I'm not like against it or anything, but I just don't think it's not what I want to play right now. But it looks cool, and yeah, I don't really have much else to say except I'm glad it's succeeding. There's a lot of fans of it. Really great also to hear that there's not a lot of microtransactions. There's not a lot of bullshit that is keeping people blocked off from being able to enjoy it. Always hate that stuff. So this is just a feel-good story for 2024 in the realm of gaming, which we really need after all the mass layoffs and corporate nonsense already.
Yep, that for sure. Definitely a feel good story. I could see Sony purchasing Arrowhead in the future.
Yeah.
Like Sony always likes to purchase people that they work with organically. So, but yeah, great game. Recommend. It's only $40. It's not full price.
Nice.
So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's very accessible. You know, it'll be on sale even in the future. So
yeah,
definitely check it out. All right, so let's move on to our discussion topic. So this is our first discussion topic of this podcast, and we're not gonna do this every week, but here and there we're gonna do a discussion topic. In this case, I wanted to talk about games that you would recommend to someone's partner that doesn't really play games, because Valentine's Day was this week, and not everybody has a partner that's into gaming, but people like to support their partner in their hobby, and they would like to play a game too. So my question to Dory would be, what games would you recommend to people that don't only play games? You can play something that's something that's fun that you can play with your partner.
Yeah, so I'm taking these suggestions from my own partner, who is only very casually into gaming. Kim does play games off and on, mostly Stardew Valley, which I'll mention in a little bit. But yeah, so most of these suggestions are stuff that's worked for her. So I have like real world like application of these games actually working. One of the things I'd recommend to people whose partner isn't really into gaming is just in general those kinds of first co-op games, right? Co-op games are a great way. Couch party co-op games, couch co-op games, whatever you want to call them, stuff like Mario Party, Super Smash Brothers. Lots of Nintendo games are easy to get into. But if I had to pick one, it would be It Takes Two. Now, ironically, this game's all about breaking up and getting a divorce. But I do really think it brings you closer together. Kim and I had more than one argument while we were playing this game together because, like I said, Kim doesn't play a lot of video games, and so platformer is not her thing, and platformer is also not really my thing, and I play a lot of games. So it was a match made in hell. But it was a lot of fun, and I love that game so much, and had some incredible sections. Really, It Takes Two is not only a great choice for you and your partner, just because it's also about relationships and it's easy to follow and stuff like that, but also because it inherently requires you to work together, and It Takes Two has a lot of varied gameplay. So your partner might see a portion of It Takes Two, see like a portion of the gameplay or whatever, and say, "Oh, that's so cool! Like I didn't know video games could do that. Where could I find that as its own game?" Right? Because it takes lots of ideas from other games. So It Takes Two, I'd highly recommend. I mentioned it earlier. Games like Stardew Valley, games like Spiritfarer, which I was trying to think of last week. These kind of like management games that are very chill and easy to play, easy to get into. I think those are great ideas for anybody. Spiritfarer is one of Kim's favorite games of all time. It's a really nice game to get into. Even I liked it, and I'm not a big fan of like management games, generally speaking. I didn't go all the way through with it, but I got way further than I thought I would. And I believe they've introduced a 2-player mode for that game, and you can switch back and forth or something. I don't remember, but they've done a lot of updates for Spiritfarer, including some DLC, and it's a great package. I don't even think it costs that much either, and it's on the Switch. It's probably on some other program on PC too. And then the last thing I'd want to recommend, obviously super biased, but Kingdom Hearts is a lovely series. It's very feel good for the most part. And if you stay with the mainline series, or if you only like do the mainline series plus a couple of extras, I think it is a bit more digestible for people to get into. But I mean, maybe your partner doesn't even care about the deep and incredible lore. Maybe they're just into Disney, and that's great too. Because there's plenty of Disney to go around for every game. One of Kim's favorite games is Birth by Sleep. She loves that game. And she loves the Kingdom Hearts characters, but she also loves seeing those Disney worlds, and I do too. I'm a Disney fan as well. But it's definitely something that can make it more generally appealing. And it can introduce them to Final Fantasy characters who they might not be aware of, and they might be like, wow, that character's really cool. Like, do they have their own game? And it was like, well, good news for you. You can go play this 50-hour turn-based RPG. Maybe that's too big of a leap, though. But yeah, but it's another game where I think it's very wholesome, especially Kingdom Hearts 1. It's very easy to get into. It's very nostalgic for a lot of people. And yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, even if not all of the games hold up, but Kingdom Hearts 2 definitely does. So those would be my 3 games, basically, couch co-op, management simulator / really cozy games, I guess you could call them. And then kind of like nostalgic, feel good, like action games that aren't like brutally difficult, not like Ninja Gaiden or something. Play Kingdom Hearts, give it to your partner, put it on beginner. They're gonna slap the shit out of Hades. Like, it's gonna be fine. So just don't put it on critical, and don't have them fight the optional boss fights. But yeah, those are my suggestions.
Those are good choices. I recommend. First of all, I recommend games where you can craft or build a town or something like that, like Animal Crossing, Minecraft, or Disney Dreamlight Valley, Stardew Valley, things like that. Those are all good choices to start off with. In terms of actual like narrative story-driven games, I'd recommend games like Firewatch or a Telltale game. I'd recommend like The Wolf Among Us, The Walking Dead, or Telltale Batman or something like that. Because those games are just quick time heavy, very slow, very story driven, so you don't have to like do 100 combos and buttons and things like that. And I would recommend Nintendo games, of course. I'd recommend like Super Mario Brothers Wonder, playing co-op multiplayer, or I'd recommend like Mario Kart, because Mario Kart, everybody plays Mario Kart. It's accessible. It's very easy to get into. Smash Brothers can be something fun to play, but obviously it's not something I'd play hardcore because you would get whooped. But just for a casual get together, that'd be fun to play. I'd also recommend games like maybe like the Dark Pictures games or Until Dawn if you're into horror.
Oh yeah, Kim loved that one. That's a good shout. Yep.
Yeah, because it's like the Telltale games where you make decisions in quick time events, and they're a little more challenging than Telltale games, but I feel like a casual person can get into it. It's not that bad. You just go left or right kind of thing. It's not anything crazy, and it's fun just watching somebody play that kind of game. But yeah, that's what I would recommend. Play something. I would also like games like Edith Finch or Firewatch, something like that. Slow, story driven. Could be a good starter to get used to controls, and then you can get progressively more into games after that. Although it's harder for me to totally put myself in that space because I'm playing games since I was 2. So I don't remember a time where I didn't play games. So, but yeah, that's what I would recommend, like story driven narrative games or Nintendo games. Yeah. All right.
Good picks.
All right. So let's talk about some news now. There was a handful of news this week. Like we said, and first we're gonna start with a Bloober Team not being happy with Silent Hills 2's trailer as in the state of play. They said it doesn't reflect the actual game at all, which is kind of weird because like,
why did they release it then?
Well, they blame that. They say Konami's the one that pushed that trailer,
okay.
But I mean, does that mean that there's like a disconnect? Like they're having conflict between Konami and the developers? Like,
look, this is a shoe-in in terms of this is sorry. What I'm trying to say, this is a layup in terms of like denying that their game looks a little rough is blaming Konami. I mean, that's foolproof. I mean, I think Jim Stephanie Sterling got a hashtag fuck Konami going at one point. So like. The possibilities are endless for blaming Konami for your own failures. If that's what's happening or not, I don't know. So I'm just saying. I mean, it's certainly plausible that Konami is meddling with stuff or messing with stuff. I mean, we certainly know about their long history with their recent franchises and how they've been messing up a lot of them. I mean, Metal Gear Survive for one, and the whole saga with Kojima. But I don't know. It seems like that would be tough for Konami. What did Konami just take a pre-alpha build and put it in a trailer, and they just made us think that that was the near final build? Like I don't really see how Konami could have messed this one up for Bloober Team. This feels like a Bloober Team thing, and they're trying to cover their ass.
Yeah, plus I don't know how much different the gameplay is going to be. Like they're claiming it's not the same as all. Like is it like did they show an old build or something? I don't really understand. Like, I mean, Silent Hill 2, the original gameplay is clunky. I mean, it's old. It's from a different era of survival horror, take control era with the fixed camera angles and things like that. And it does add a charm to it. It makes it scarier, but it's 2024 and we've seen better survival horror remakes and games since then. So it feels kind of a cop out for me. Like I like just because it's a remake of an old classic game doesn't mean you need to do the same clunky controls from 23 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be on Bloober's team more. Bloober Team's team more if like they had a history of like being good, but since they make pretty much mediocre or okay at best horror games, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to like take their side. I mean, Konami has been pissing me off for a long time, of course, like most gamers, and I can see like, oh yeah, Konami sucks at marketing. I can understand that viewpoint, but Bloober Team just hasn't proven to me that they're good on their own. So I don't. It's hard for me to be on their side. But I guess I need to see more. But from what I'm seeing, like I said, when we talked about the state of play, that was probably the most disappointing thing at the state of play. Like that was
It looks, yeah. I mean,
clunky.
it looks jarring. It looks clunky. It doesn't look satisfying. I mean, it just doesn't look satisfying to hit the monsters and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I want that gameplay to be better, and hopefully it's tightened up for when it comes out. I mean, I think we still don't have a launch date or release date. Is it 2025 or something? But so I mean, there's still time to, freshen it up, improve it based on player feedback. They could always delay it. I mean, 2023 was loaded for survival horror, so it's not like I'm itching to have another survival horror game that's amazing or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to complain either, mind you. But I mean, I think I'm good for a bit, So I don't know. There's still hope for this game. I'm not saying like, oh, game's dead and Bloober Team sucks or whatever, but the excuse here seems a little flimsy. As much as I don't like Konami, and as much as I think you could credibly just blame them, which I also think is kind of wild, given they said they have so much love for the Silent Hill franchise and Konami's the one that published them. So it feels like they're throwing Konami under the bus here, which I can't imagine Konami appreciates. But I don't know. Yeah, this seems like a weird excuse, and I just don't know how much Konami would really be able to like take an earlier build and then show it as a trailer without Bloober Team knowing. I mean, if they did do that, then that's fucking wild, and Konami, people should be talking about it. But as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence that that's actually the case, and it just seems like the gameplay is just not there yet. And again, we have time for them to fix it. And for them to take in player feedback or delay it if they need. So, it's not the end of the world, but this is a weird move to blame Konami instead of just taking the L and saying, yeah, we're working hard to improve it. We'll see you guys soon. Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to some Sony news. So recently, Sony's boss, Hiroki Totoki, talked about the business side of Sony. First of all, we got reports for Sony that they didn't hit their 25 million target. They missed it by 4 million, but it's still doing really well. I mean, this is this is about the peak of the console. Like usually about 3-4 years in, you start hitting your peak. So probably safe bet PlayStation 5 is going to start selling less now in comparison to what it was because it's just sales are going to start declining a little bit. And we'll start gearing up for the PS6 conversation, which sounds weird, but It's only 3 years away, really, technically.
Yeah.
Like if you go by the usual cycle of 6 to 7 years. But he was talking about the business side. He said they can improve the business when it comes to business. That's what he said. Direct quote. I think what he's talking about is I think he just wants better synergy. They had to seemed like they had to change like their whole strategy. Everybody's got away from the games as a service and then going back to single player. That probably delayed a lot of plans and things like that. So that's probably why we're not going to see first party games for a while with Sony, and they're relying heavily on second and third party, which I guess that's normal for Sony anyway. But the other news too is that he wants to be more aggressive when it comes to pushing it on PC. I mean, as you can see with Helldivers 2 being really successful on Steam, is only going to further that decision. I feel like that's where Microsoft's heading too, of course, and they already have done that. All their games are on PC and on Steam, so it's naturally Sony's going to do the same thing. It's just where the industry's heading. The only company that's not going to do that is Nintendo as of now, because they don't need to, because they're doing really, really, really well. Now I don't know if that means like PlayStation's going to start putting all their games on PC day one. I'm feeling that's not going to be the case. Maybe like a year later or 2 years later. Because you still got to sell the console too. Because it's like, I'm not gonna say that what's the point of buying a console if it's all on PC, because console and PC are two different audiences. A lot of people just prefer to have a machine that works 99% of the time. You hit the button and that's that. But it's still gonna hurt it's still gonna hurt the PlayStation brand a bit if every game just goes day one on PC. Because obviously Xbox is not doing really well and hardware wise, right? Xbox is not selling like it should, and I think a lot of reason why is because a lot of people feel like what's the point? But I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm not smart. I don't think I know the business side of things enough to know if that's gonna hurt PlayStation or not to put other games on day one. But I do think it's a safe bet that at least we're going to see PlayStation games on all the PlayStation games on PC at some point. Maybe it may not be day one, but it might be like a year or two later. I feel like they're going to keep doing that strategy. But I'm curious how well these games have sold. I'm curious how God of War, Days Gone, Horizon have sold. Forbidden West comes out next month, I believe, on PC. So we'll see how successful it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one thing you can definitely say for sure, I think, is that all the multiplayer games are going to be PC and PlayStation, PS5 at the same time. I feel like that's an easy, safe bet. Just because all the service games are going to be day one, I think. There's no point of keeping a console exclusive. But the question is, are they going to put God of War 3, Spider-Man 3, Horizon 3 on PC day one? I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll see, I guess. Will it affect me in any way? No.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. I mean, I think they're going to stick to their usual strategy that they've been doing with Horizon, with Spider-Man, with Miles Morales, with all those first party games. So maybe they'll give it a year or something like that, like you said, a year to 2 years, and then they'll port it to the PC. They've done it with The Last of Us Part 2 as well, though that didn't go particularly well, at least at first. Yeah, I mean, I think they are going to continue the port. They're going to continue the PS5 to PC pipeline. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much better the PS5 could really be doing right now. I think it's worth saying that the 25 million mark, that the fact they even got this close is pretty impressive, given we just went through a pandemic. Arguably, some parts are still going through that. And on top of that, there was the whole chip shortage that also impacted things. So the fact that they were even somewhat close to their goal, I mean, 4 million is like $4 for Sony. Then I think that's a good sign of how well the PS5 is doing. And even if they didn't meet their target goal, I don't think that's a huge deal. They might come out with PS5 Slim or the Pro or whatever to boost sales a little bit in the final run, and they'll probably make that target eventually. Even if it'll be late or something, won't be on as quickly as they wanted. But yeah, I mean, they put all that stuff on PC with Horizon and Spider-Man and The Last of Us, and so I don't think they'll be afraid to do first parties, multi-platform or multiplayer games like Helldivers, I think are just meant to day one go there because they're meant to be played with as many people as possible. It doesn't make sense to restrict it to just one platform if it's a multiplayer game. If it's a single player game, I think there's more of an option to wait. Let the big thing for them, I think, is to have the winter sale, the holiday sales go by, especially if the game comes out in the winter. Have a year go by, have those winter sales come around twice, and then maybe talk about ports once or twice, and then talk about ports, and do it the following year or whatever. I'm with Seb. I don't mind these things happening. I think gaming should be as accessible to everybody as possible. And as long as you don't need a $1,500 computer or whatever to play these PS5 games, I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, I think I think Sony is arguably doing the best out of all of them. I mean, maybe the Switch is doing better in terms of sales and stuff like that because I think it beats the PS2 or something. But
It's
in
on its
terms
way.
of like the console, what's that?
It's on its way of surpassing PS2
Yeah,
in sales.
yeah, it's on its way. So I mean, as far as the console war, I mean the PS5 is smashing it, and I mean it's 2-1 beating the Xbox. I don't know exactly how it matches up to the Nintendo Switch, but I presume the Switch is winning. But the Switch has also been out for longer. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know. There's not much more to say. I think besides that, just that I think the PC ports will keep going, and even if they didn't meet the targets, I think though they will within the next couple of years.
Yeah. So another thing in PlayStation news is we got. Well, first of all, they Sony expects, like I said earlier, the PS5 is going to start declining in sales next fiscal year, which is 2025. And they said there's going to be no major franchise titles before April 2025. Which, like I said, doesn't surprise me. Like I said earlier about like how they had to change their strategy with the games as a service, and they probably had to pivot, probably caused some problems behind the scenes, and so I expected delays fully. But even then, I don't think it's a big deal as it sounds on paper because it says no major franchise titles, so we could still get smaller things. We could still get we can still get new IAPs that we don't know about because they were working on new IAPs.
Mm-hmm.
Still got Concord coming out.
Yep.
Still got and a potential Astro Bots game, which we're going to talk about. And I think they just mean there's going to be no God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us, Uncharted between now and
right.
next year, between early next year. So I think people might just be being overboard with this, going overboard with this in terms of like flipping out.
What?
Like, Sony has nothing.
People on the internet blowing things out of proportion.
Exactly, and then
crazy.
Not only the fact that I know on the surface, Sony has no first party, they're in trouble this year. It looks bad. But most people don't pay attention to that. I'm talking about people that are not online, follow every little gaming news possible. I think people just see Rise of Ronin's coming out, or Helldivers 2, or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. They don't see that's not first party. That's
absolutely.
They don't even see that. They see this PlayStation logo, marketing. They see that's a PlayStation game. So I think it's overblown completely to be upset about this. I don't think Sony needs to have 5 first party games every year kind of thing. I've been happy with my PS5 personally. I feel like I've always have something to play.
Yep.
It doesn't always have to be first party supported. Like with Game Pass, for example. When I play Game Pass, it's not like I play Halo or Gears of War or New Forza every 3 months, right? It's more the beauty of Game Pass is all the indies and smaller games that Microsoft doesn't even publish that I find on Game Pass. Oh wow, I didn't know about this game. Let me play it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird criticism to complain about Sony when all of them are like that, right? When you play on the Switch, Switch has the most exclusives for sure, right? There's so much first party support all the time. But at the same time, a lot of people play Switch. They play indies and smaller games. They don't play a new Mario every week. It's slow. Majority of people that play on PlayStation play Fortnite, Minecraft, NBA 2K, Madden, so Call of Duty. So people are happy. I feel like the only people that are really upset about this are the people that are just too emotionally invested in hardware and console war bullshit. So Yeah. Um.
Yeah. I mean, even take it from me. Like, even as somebody who was really into video games as a kid, as a teenager, took a little break, came back as an adult, and obviously still very into video games. I didn't know the difference between third party, first party, second party. And I was very into my PS2, Xbox 360, the Wii, and then later my PS4 and now 5 and stuff. Like, it took me a long time to figure out like what's the difference between all these things. Yeah, to me, this is a thing that people are going to overreact to, and make a big deal out of, or do stupid console war stuff, even though that feels more and more on the way out these days. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not really a huge deal, honestly. Even if like that meant like we weren't getting any major first party games at all, and including like new IPs or whatever, like it wouldn't bother me that much because A, like I've got a pretty solid backlog to bring me through the rest of the year. B, Final Fantasy is just about to come out. Like, it took me like 2 weeks to beat Yakuza, so it'll probably take me another 2 weeks or so to beat Final Fantasy. And there's other games besides that coming out this year that I'm also looking forward to, which we've talked about. So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem like a big deal. Obviously, I love God of War and Spider-Man and all those big games and big titles, but I can wait. Those are years off, and I wouldn't have expected them this year or next year anyway. The most I would think is like maybe a teaser or something in the next year or two. And even then, if we didn't get that, that's okay. Like, there are lots of games out there. Not everything has to be a cinematic masterpiece to be worth playing.
Right. Right. So another finally in PlayStation news. Well, it's more of a rumor actually. Like, according to Jeff Grubb from Giant Blum, he claims that there could be an Astro Bots game coming out this year. Because I guess Sony doesn't view Astro Bots as a giant franchise, which makes sense. I mean, I guess they view when they think of
Yeah,
giant franchise, think of like Spider Man or God of War that sell like 15, 20 million copies. Astro Bots is obviously not that, but I think Astro Bots is a pretty big IP for them. To me, the Astro Bots have become their mascots. Like, they've become Sony's mascot, in my opinion. When I think of Astrobot, I mean, I think of Sony now. I think of Astrobots. Like, the first thing I think of. It reminds me of the '90s with Spiral and Crash. They always use the Astrobots in their
right.
marketing when it comes to VR or on the website. So it's a pretty big deal for me personally. I mean, Sony definitely needs a platformer under their belt. It'd be nice be nice not to have the third person shooter in the woods or something like that. Like, the so-called Sony template. It's good to have like a
Right.
variety of games in your portfolio, and I think this game has been long overdue. It's been 4 years since the last Astrobots game that came free on PlayStation 5. It was an amazing demo of the DualSense and the haptic feedback and all that. Um, and it was a great game. It really stood out. It was a nice, easy platinum, very casual. A lot of great references to PlayStation IPs and console hardware, like history and things like that. So it was Team Asobi is basically Studio Japan's like the leftovers of that. And they've been radio silent for like 4 years. So it feels like it's time to have this game come out. I'm curious if it's gonna be VR or not. Obviously, Astrobot's Rescue Mission was VR, one of the best VR games, but I think it's underrated because I mean, we're talking like this game got like 10 out of 10s. I think it's underrated because a lot of people just don't play VR, and so I'm curious if they're willing
Right.
to support the PSVR 2 with this, or if it's gonna be a regular game. I lean on it being a regular game, but we'll see. Do you think this game has a possibility of existing, or you think this is BS?
I mean, so Jeff Grubb, recently I think was talking about one of the people who was talking about the Xbox stuff, which we'll talk about soon, and ended up being wrong about it. So I don't know. One or the other. I mean, I like these games. I think they're fun. Little, I guess I call them like distraction games. Like, they're fun little bite-sized platformers that I enjoy, and they're like a loving send up and tribute to PlayStation's history, which I think is cool. It's a cool idea for a game. It establishes PlayStation's history and its identity, and all the cool games that it had and does have and will have, etc. So I think that's great. They almost always do this with a new console, so I'd be interested to see if they did it as a standalone and what could they do. Like maybe they would just tout the success of the PS5. Like it always feels like these games are just kind of meta narratives about Sony kind of celebrating its own success, which I mean, it should. The PlayStation is one of the most popular gaming systems of all time, right? And so there's certainly a lot to celebrate. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about It Takes Two. I'm not much of a platformer person, so do I think it could happen in the next year or two? Sure. I'm not positive that Sony wants to direct those resources into a Sobe doing a new game when the PS6 is still years away. But it's possible that they could do it anyway. Maybe they could do a little surprise mini game or an April Fool's thing, or I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, based on the last two games that Astro Bot has been, that it's big enough to come out on its own without the PS6 or something big backing it. Maybe they do it in support of the PS Pro, the PS5 Pro, or the PS5 Slim or something. That could be an idea. But I don't see the Astro Bot series as its own thing that comes out in regular intervals. Instead, I see it as something that comes out to celebrate historic moments in Sony PlayStation history. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this, but for me, it's not a big deal either way. I liked both games, but it's not like they wowed me or blew me away or whatever. They're just cool little things that came for free with the PS4 and the PS5.
Yeah, plus I think Jeff, I mean, I know Jeff Grubb definitely has people in the inside that he talks to and things like that, but I think a lot of times he throws things
For sure.
He throws things at a wall and hopes it sticks. I think he always just, because he said Gears of War could be coming to PlayStation possibly and things like that. I think he just like takes a shot, see if he gets it right or not. I'm sure someone's telling him something. I'm not saying he's making it up, but I don't think everything he says is like set in stone either. So I'm always, every time anyone inside says like a rumor like this, I'm always at the very most cautiously optimistic, or at least like on the fence, very skeptical about what they're saying. A lot of people just believe anything anyone says. Oh, it's coming. I guess we're getting Resident Evil Code Veronica remake because this guy said it on Twitter with 10 followers. So just be careful what you read online. But I do think it has a legitimate shot of being true, of course. All right, so let's talk about the final topic of the night, which was the Xbox podcast that we got on Thursday. As people have called it, a nothing burger, because like nothing changed. Because if you went by the online discourse for 2 weeks, it was just like sky is falling, the end of Xbox. PlayStation's gonna start releasing $1,000 consoles. Every game's gonna be $100. Yeah, like it was like
$120 gonna be double the price.
Yeah, because Sony's stupid on business, and they're just gonna make games unaffordable, and no one's gonna buy them. Like, come on, people. There was there wasn't nothing, and there was some things. It just wasn't like anything major. That was like people were expecting like mountains to shift. It was like the whole industry is about to change forever. Like it was so hyped up to be something that wasn't. But there were some things, and first of all, we do know for a fact that there's 4 games coming to other platforms for sure. Phil himself said that they're just not going to be Starfield or Indiana Jones, at least for now. The rumor is, or I guess it's pretty much confirmed at this point, is Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Sea of Thieves. Which makes sense because 2 of those are live service games, and 2 of them are smaller games. Obviously, I think Hi-Fi Rush was the best Xbox game last year, even over Starfield. But it's still not a giant game. It was shadow dropped. It's made by Tango DreamWorks. Not exactly their A-team, like developer from Bethesda. And I feel like Sea of Thieves and Grounded could always use more people in a service game, so that makes sense. And Pentiment, obviously, is the smallest game in that list. Pentiment is an amazing game. My top 10. It was in my top 10. My retrospective.
Yes, mine as well.
And it holds up really, really well. It's gonna, for me, because I love narrative, story-driven games. Where I don't mind the slowness of it. It's not gonna appeal to most people. Safe bet. It's for like people that are really in those kind of games.
Right.
It's not going to sell like gangbusters, 5 to 10 million or anything like that. So it makes sense for Obsidian to put it on a different like Switch and PlayStation as well. But I don't. That doesn't mean that's the final that's the final list of games. Like I feel like this is just the start of Microsoft putting more games on other platforms. I just don't think it's going to be Halo and Gears of War right off the bat. Of course, I think it's going to be slowly building something up and new games. Maybe Starfield in 2 years or something. I don't know, but I definitely don't think it's the only games we're going to get on other platforms. Which again doesn't affect me. I already play on PlayStation and PC, so I have the best of both worlds. I have PC Game Pass, so worst case scenario, that doesn't come to PS5 or Switch. I just play it on PC, so it's not really an issue. And if I don't play it on Game Pass, I play it on Steam. So it's hard. It's hard to get upset or like, oh my god, I want Gears of War and Halo on PlayStation. It's ridiculous. Why are they not doing this? It's like it doesn't really affect me in any way. So
I think it's great for Grounded, and I think it's great for Pentiment, like you said. Like Pentiment needs a bigger audience. It certainly got a warm reception when it came out and high reviews, but not a lot of people really talked about it, except maybe right when it came out. So I think porting it is a smart plan if they are going to do that. Hi-Fi Rush, I mean, did really well, but we don't have any actual sales. Well, we don't have many sales numbers, I should say, because it was mostly on Game Pass that it was available. Where it shadow dropped, obviously. I mean, that was a big part of it. Grounded could always use more players, so that's not a surprise there. And then what were we saying the fourth one was?
You say Grounded, Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, Sea of Thieves, right? So same thing with Sea of Thieves. Although I don't know how much help Sea of Thieves needs, because it always seems like Sea of Thieves is doing very well for itself, despite how long it's been out. But I mean, why not bolster those numbers even more and get more people interested in pirate shenanigans? So it seems like a great list, and yeah, I gotta agree with you. This ended up being a complete nothing. I mean, I was talking to a couple people in a server that were both in, and it's just like the way that people can get heated about this, and the fact that like Xbox is gonna get completely out of the console business or something. Like the whole thing ended up being like I kind of threw my hands up in the air, and I'm like, this is all just speculation. Like we don't know at this point. I'm just gonna drop this conversation because it's like, what are we even getting upset about? We don't know what's gonna happen, and then ultimately ended up just being not nothing, but I mean pretty much nothing. Like I don't see anything objectionable for any of these games. Two are multiplayer. This is all speculation, right? Phil didn't say the actual games, but it's a pretty safe bet. Two of these are action games. One of these is like two of these are indie darlings. So it's like it makes sense. Action games. Sorry, two of these are multiplayer games, and two of these are indie darlings. It makes sense in all four cases to make those multi-platform. Phil was basically saying he was doing it for the health of Xbox, and I mean, I think that makes sense.
Those 4 games were confirmed by The Verge after the fact. I think that's where.
That's right. That's right. Verge. Yep, I forgot about that. But yes, The Verge did come out with an article where they were basically saying that it was confirmed.
Plus, and then when he asked about like, excuse me, future games coming out, he said, This is a direct quote from what he said. I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience. I don't want to create a false expectation on those other platforms that is somehow the first 4 to get over the dam, and then the dam's going to open and that everything else is coming. That's not the plan today. I also don't want to mislead customers on those other platforms. We're launching these 4 games, and we're excited about it. For obviously a very politically correct answer, walking that line as his job. But like I said, I do think this is just the start. I just don't think it's gonna be Halo and Gears of War. Like we were talking about that last week. But that was more for like shits and giggles for conversation. Like I didn't actually.
That was more of like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not once did I ever actually think that Halo was gonna be on PlayStation. It could still happen, but I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon. And even if it did, I always expected Xbox to stay in the hardware business. People were saying like this is the last Xbox generation. And Microsoft confirmed that obviously they're still going to be making hardware. Like I always expected that, and in fact, that we're getting new hardware in the holiday season. Sarah Bond said it's going to be the largest technical leap you ever seen in a hardware generation. I don't. That's a bunch of PR.
That's a
bunch of
large claim.
Yeah, that's a big. I mean, even if it's true, like Series X is the strongest console over the PS5, but like, yet all the developers tend to optimize their games for PS5, and it runs worse on Series X. And obviously, Series X hardware sales have not been great. So like that's just a nothing burger, especially for me who has a 4080 PC. So like I don't, it's not something I'm gonna buy personally. I already play all their games on PC. I'm a PC Game Pass subscriber, not Ultimate. So that does nothing for me. I think it's just
Right.
just PR stuff. I have a Series X, but I haven't touched it like in a year. It's just collecting dust because there's just no point because everything's on PC for me. But I'm a hardcore gamer, like I said, so it's more like I'm in that PC hardcore audience where I play the games on PC. Like not everybody's in that sphere. Some people just like to have the console, but not. I don't care about being in the
Right.
ecosystem of like the digital library of Xbox because my digital library is on Steam and on PS5. Like I have like maybe 800 games bought on PS5, like over the course of PS3, PS4, PS5. So like that's my main platform. So like the whole losing the digital library with the Xbox, I understand the concern if I was an Xbox gamer, but since I'm not, it's just a nothing burger for me. But they did confirm that that the Xbox respects respects the library that players have built on their Xbox, so that it's not going anywhere. Which I never expected it to go anywhere anyway. People were acting like they're going to lose their entire digital library. I get that. I get that's a common theme right now. Right now, people are worried about digital libraries taking over and losing physical media. You know, Best Buy is going to stop, or they already have stopped selling physical media. So I get the concern, but I never expected Xbox to shut down the digital library. And so that was that. And so oh, I didn't even ask you. What do you think of the new console coming out in the holiday season? Like, what is it? What do you think it is? Is it a new Xbox?
I don't
or is
know.
it
Maybe
just
it's a Series X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a Series XL or something. I don't know. It seems so. It seems kind of weird to put that in a big podcast that's already huge and just put this little tidbit like, oh, hey, we're releasing new hardware in the wind. By the way, BTW. They also announced that they're going to have 10 games this year and an Xbox showcase in June, which presumably is where they're going to announce the other games.
Yeah.
Because we already know certain games like Senua's Sacrifice or whatever it's called are going to be coming out, and there's some other stuff, I think Forza or whatever. I had a list.
We know Hellblade and
But
Indiana
anyway,
Jones.
yeah, I
and
mean,
Avowed. Those are the three.
right, Hellblade, right. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's not like, I don't know. I'm not excited about new hardware, I guess, unless it's like A, really affordable, B, really appealing, and some kind of like it's very hinged on like Game Pass. Like maybe I would be very interested to some degree, but I don't know. I just feel like for me, my Xbox, quote unquote, equipped like console is my PC, the thing I'm streaming from right now. I don't really feel like I need an Xbox console, like you said. I feel like if I did, it would just be collecting dust. Hell, I have a Switch. I barely use it. I mean, I like the Switch, but most of the games that I can get on there, I can get on Steam, and I can play it better. And I don't really need things to be handheld these days because I don't usually have time for that at work, and I don't need to travel very far. So it's just not something that like really appeals to me. Sure, if there are first party games or something like that from Nintendo themselves, like I might buy depending on what it is. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I can't say I'm super interested or impressed. I think it's cool that they did talk about how many games are going to come out this year, and that they're going to have a showcase in June. That makes sense because summer of gaming. But that also means we probably won't be seeing anything new from Xbox until the summer, which is kind of wild. They're not going to do anything for spring at all.
I mean, it's expected.
But I mean, maybe it'll be early June.
I feel like that's expected. I mean, we usually don't get giant showcases in the spring. Like, most of the time, they just wait till the summer, so that's expected. That's probably what that's pretty much sums up the whole show. I think. I mean, we hit on all the news. That like it pretty much was what I expected. I didn't expect the ground shaking. Oh, we're putting all our games on PlayStation 5 tomorrow. You know what I mean? I didn't expect because people were acting like they're gonna be like they're gonna go on a big podcast. They're gonna be like Xbox is dead. We're not making any more games. We're not making any more hardware. It's
right.
over. Shut.
On this Xbox podcast, Xbox is dead.
Nothing like literally we learned pretty much nothing that like oh yeah we're still making hardware like that was expected. Oh, we're still we think it's better for games to be on multi-platform because they said oh the layoffs were a result of that. Oh like oh the result no they said the layoffs showed them that like oh yeah we need to be multi-platform because more people can develop the games and be there and all that. So they said that. So we already knew. Oh yeah, Xbox is multi-platform. We knew that already because they do that on PC.
Oh,
mobile phone.
We should mention Diablo 4 is the first Activision Blizzard game coming to Game
totally
Pass because that was one of the other things.
I wrote that down too. And then yeah, Diablo 4 is coming to Game Pass on March 28th, which does nothing for me because I own it on Steam and PS5 already. So it's like okay,
right.
But still, I mean, it's fully expected. They own Blizzard now, and it's only the beginning.
Yes.
I really hope they do put World of Warcraft and all the Warcraft games on Game Pass, PC Game Pass. That'd be so cool. Like that's something that would have got me excited personally. I mean, I know Blizzard's been shitty for a long time, but we're talking like old Blizzard. Like I would recommend those games to you because this is before Blizzard became awful. Like this is like when it was arguably the greatest developer in the world on that Rockstar level.
When they were so fucking good that South Park was making parodies based on
when they were like actual like hardcore PC like actual gamers in charge. It wasn't like everything was corporate like it is now or it was anyway. So I do hope Microsoft returns Blizzard to its former glory. So I'm hoping. But this is fully expected. Diablo 4 is pretty big game, so of course you can put it on Game Pass. But like you put your other games on Game Pass, that'd be awesome. But again, but another example of like fully expected. Like there's nothing, no surprise. Like this, like this whole thing. Like I understand some people like to have like the people talking to them. It's like that way you're not getting the corporate tweet. But like this whole thing could have been a tweet like 2 weeks ago, or a blog post, or an article, or something. That could have like weathered the storm completely. Like they just sat there and let shit linger for 2 weeks. Which you can say, you can argue well.
It's terrible.
You can argue well. Like most gamers don't even care about that stuff. They don't pay attention to this stuff. It's only the hardcore gamers that were freaking out. Like obviously us on Twitter are like less than 1% of the actual gaming audience. But at the same time, I feel like this could have been handled a lot better. And I feel like one of the problems I think Microsoft has more than anything else is they always shoot themselves in the foot. Like they always have so much momentum. Like they had the Xbox Developer Direct that we talked about. It did very well. People were excited about it, and then like this whole news comes out. It's like now all the news about Xbox and Microsoft is negative, and the world's ending. It's like you could have shut the shit all down like 2 weeks ago. Like I don't know why this needed to be a overhyped podcast where like they talk for 20 minutes. Like I felt like this easily could have just been a tweet for me personally. Like it was a big nothing. Like Jeff Keighley hyping it up, and I was like, the whole thing was like, people thought it was like a showcase. It's like, But yeah, that's the gamer's fault, I guess.
Like you said, like this could have been a tweet. Like it's the definition of a meeting that could have been an email, right? Like this is. I may have said that before, but like this is something that didn't need to be nearly as big as it was, or anywhere hyped up to what it was. It just was overhyped, and in the end, like I watched like the first. I think I listened to like the first few minutes, and then after that, it's like okay, nothing big is happening. I looked at some posts about it on Discord about people talking about like what was going on, and it's like. I don't know. It's just not a big deal ultimately. I want to also clarify that they said that they're announcing new investments in new hardware over the winter, but I mean, hardware could be anything. I mean, they could be making the next Kinect or something. They're not. So it's not necessarily like the Xbox Series XL or some shit. Like it might not be a new console. It could be something else.
They are.
But we don't know.
I think it does. I think it is the next gen Xbox, but like when that's coming out, who knows? Like it just feels like a nothing burger again, because it's like we already know they're working on another Xbox, because PlayStation's like Sony's working on PS6 right now. Of course, every hardware developer is working on something right now. It's like this whole showcase, the podcast was just like I learned nothing new that I already didn't know. Basically, it was just confirmation that we're not getting Halo and Gears on PlayStation 5.
I mean, it's a sick patient. It's a patient with a really bad case of the flu saying, "No, I'm not dead yet." Like that's what's going on here. It's like Xbox, who's been having a lot of trouble lately, saying, "No, guys, we're not going out of business. We're not going bankrupt. Xbox isn't like going away. The consoles aren't stopping. Like Halo's not going to PlayStation." Like all those absolutely bonkers things that people were saying ended up being not true. I mean, I still think it's cool that those games are coming to other platforms besides Xbox Game Pass. But 3 of them I have no interest in. I have no interest in Diablo, and I've already played Pentiment. So it's like, for me, that ultimately ends up being not much of anything either.
Yeah, the whole thing was fun just to speculate and talk about it. Other than that, it is what it is. It's whatever. Like the result was pretty much that's pretty much how life is anyway. It's like people hype these things up, and it's like, of course they're not going out of business. And of course they're not shutting Xbox down. And of course they're not putting all their games on all the platforms. Like, people really expected that to happen? Like you and I knew the whole time, like that wasn't like it happened. Like it was just fun to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Like no one
right.
No one with a brain realistically expected the end of Xbox. Like, unplug your Xbox, throw it out the window, use it as a doorstop. It's over. Call it, like, imagine Phil.
I wonder what happened to those.
Good.
Those content creators, like, who are like, "Oh, I'm quitting. I'm stopping all of my." They're that they're coming right back.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way.
I would that's my biggest takeaway from this whole thing was stop listening to these insiders. Stop with the people that push the rumors for like clickbait, and block these clowns that like shut down. Like they're like blown up their entire they've blown up all their bridges like over this little like rumor. Like, come on, guys! Like, you really thought this was the end of the Xbox brand? It was so stupid. I blocked everybody. Anyone even remotely an Xbox insider that like was totally wrong. I was just like, I don't even want these people popping on my timeline anymore. Like I expect them to be wrong, but it was like they put their whole reputation on the line for nothing. Come on, like you just wait till things happen and then react. Like, so it is what it is. I think that's the biggest takeaway from the whole thing was the insiders took the biggest L, and even Xbox people turned on them. And I think that's all we got out of this. That and Diablo comes to Game Pass like that, but we already knew that was gonna happen. So that was it. Big nothing burger. Right. All that hype for nothing, of course. But again, we didn't expect anything. So yeah, that's the Xbox saga that we've had on this podcast for 2 weeks now. And that's how it ends. So now we go back to talking about Hellblade coming out in May and things like that. And all that stuff. But like I said, me and I are PC Game Pass subscribers, so it doesn't affect us in any way. So it's kind of hard to like. It's really hard to get upset or like whatever. It's just like you're just like both of us were just like, who cares? Like it really doesn't.
I'm not upset. I'm like that emoji that's like just a thin just a line. Like I'm just like whatever.
Yeah, I'm like what the whole thing
wasn't
is
a huge deal.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Yeah, like it wasn't that they didn't say anything, but the things that they announced wasn't much. It's just like whatever.
The main thing for me is like I got like when I was sick last week, I got the enjoyment of just reading people's reactions. Like I had to stay home sick. I got to sit around and just read people's reactions on Twitter, on forums and stuff, and that was fun. So that's the main thing I got out of it is entertainment. And that was pretty much it. So yeah, that is our show. Thank you for joining me, Dory.
No problem.
A lot of news. I feel like news has been very heavy recently, and maybe we'll get a Nintendo Direct next week.
Yeah, for sure.
the rumor again is that there was a Nintendo Direct this
Right,
week,
rumor.
but it got moved because of the Xbox podcast. Not sure I even believe that because Nintendo does whatever they want. Why would Nintendo fear Xbox? I don't understand that, but either way, the Nintendo Direct, I'm sure on the horizon. It has to be. It's that time, so maybe expect that. We'll see what games I'm playing for next week's episode. We're not in the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth territory yet. We're getting closer. It comes up February 29th. So I'll talk about the Prince of Persia game or Persona 3 Reload or something like that, but we'll see. So who knows what news is gonna be this week? This is the week where I'm like, I don't know what's gonna come out, but then again, all the news that we talked about today was like recently, like Thursday and Wednesday and stuff. So
Right.
So yeah. All right. You have a good night, Dory. Thanks for joining me, and peace.